Boundaries are super important in our relationships, but people sometimes find them kind of hard. And I want to give you a way to think about boundaries that will make them easier for you to use and also make it easier for the person to hear your boundary. I'm Stacy Rocklein, and it's my mission to eradicate loneliness. And we do that by trying to stay connected even when there's a conflict of some kind. And boundaries sounds like it's a disconnection, a wall between us, but actually what they create is a circle of safety around us, around the relationship. So let's do an example because I want you to start to think about boundaries in a little bit of a different way. I want you to think about boundaries as you meeting your own needs. They're all about you. You are in an environment that's not meeting your need, you need a boundary. You're with a person that is not meeting your need, you need a boundary. And so when we think about it like that, it's really about self-care. So here's an example. Let's think about volume. Okay, so one way this might happen is with like parenting. I mean, I've got 3 boys. They're loud. And when they were little, they were especially loud. And that could make me uncomfortable sometimes, especially if I was tired or I was stressed out. Their volume was just more than I can handle. Now, here's what's really important. Outside, the volume would be fine, right? In someone else's house, the volume would be fine. There's nothing wrong with the volume. And one thing that we really love to do is to make the other person wrong. We're like, there is one way to do it, and it's my way, and everyone who does it a different way is wrong. But that's not actually the case. Other people could be more comfortable in that same scenario, but sometimes I wasn't. What if this was a partner? Let's say that your partner, their volume goes way up when they get passionate about something, excited about something, upset about something. And in another relationship, that would be fine. It wouldn't be a big deal, right? Maybe in their family of origin, it wasn't a big deal. But for you, it's very triggering. And that is perfectly okay. That means you have a need that they're not meeting. And so what should you do about it? You might be tempted to just self-talk yourself out of the boundary, right? To say, gosh, this is just about me. I should just deal with it. They're just kids being loud, or he's just expressing himself. And so you don't meet your own need. And over time, repressing your own needs is going to show up as resentment. It's going to come out sideways. You're going to get to a situation where you're just going to blow. It's really important that you recognize your discomfort and that you actually do something about it. And that benefits them because you're expressing yourself, you're communicating, you're not keeping things to yourself. You're letting them meet your need too. And in our most intimate relationships, our partners want to meet our needs. They really do. And they can't read our minds. So the most important thing is that you absolutely do something. You're uncomfortable. You recognize that you're triggered and you've got a need, and it's your job to meet it by communicating. And you take out the judgment of it, right? It's not like what you're doing is wrong. It's, you're wrong. When you make someone else wrong in the course of boundaries, then you're going to end up with conflict. You're going to end up, the thing that you fear the most, which is hurting the other person's feelings, is actually going to happen. The thing that you fear the most might be the disconnection. That is going to happen if we make the other person feel judged. We don't have to make them feel judged, right? There are times when they're doing something that we might feel is wrong, but in the communication, if we're saying, hey, what you're doing is wrong, you're going to trigger the other person, and then boundaries are harder to set. So Here are some of the advantages of doing it in a little bit different way. This is all about framing, how you frame this boundary to the other person. And so one of the things you're going to do is you're going to give an option. You're going to give a choice. Anytime somebody feels like they've got a choice, it feels more empowering. They're not being told what to do. They're not being forced into anything. They're getting to pick this or that, right? So if it's like loud kids in the environment, I can say, hey, my ears need more quiet right now, and you really want to have some big boisterous fun, so we need a different option. It's just not a good fit right now. See, the judgment isn't in that, it's just saying, hey, not working for me. I have a need that isn't being met. And so you can say, you know what? You guys can lower your volume and I can keep hanging out in this room, or you can keep having fun and I'm going to go hang out somewhere else. It doesn't make them feel judged. It doesn't make them feel like they're wrong in any way. It just means that we have a bad fit and we need to make a change. So framing it as a choice, because when it comes down to it with boundaries, it's about you taking an action that you promise to take. Yes, sometimes we want the behavior to change, right? We want the volume to go down, but it's what I'm going to do if that doesn't happen. If you've got a partner that is really loud when you guys are in conflict, you can say, I get really triggered in that moment, and when you raise your volume, and so you can either lower it so we can keep talking, or I'm going to walk away until we're ready to have a quieter conversation, or we find some other way of talking about this. That can be like text message, that can be email, that can be writing a letter. There are other options that will hopefully bring down volume, right? Maybe we need to go out and be out in public so that you don't raise your voice and we can have a conversation about this. So you're promising to do something and they get the choice to either keep doing it their way or make a modification so that you guys can keep communicating. It's really important to also emphasize how this is good for the relationship, that's the reason for the boundary, right? We're eradicating loneliness by staying connected even when we're in conflict, right? And so you've identified a need and you've given a choice and you really want to say, I don't want us to get disconnected. And so I am going to offer this choice, make this promise of my action, because I don't want to feel disconnected from you. I don't want resentment to rise. I don't want to get angry. I don't want to get frustrated, right? And so, when you have the loud little kids, it's like, I don't want you to see mad mommy and I don't want to become mad mommy. So I'm going to stop before we get ourselves there by dealing with this volume issue right now for myself. And if it's your partner, it's the same thing. When you yell, I feel triggered and then I shut down or I want to get the hell out of there. And so if we can take care of this disconnect, this mismatch now, then we're going to stay connected, even though we might be having a conversation about some very hard thing. This is for the benefit of the relationship. And this last one is really important. When you frame it the way I'm suggesting, you're sending a really important message to the other person that your needs are important, that you're going to respond to them. You're going to communicate them. They don't have to read your mind, that you're going to let them know how they can be met, that you're going to consistently take care of yourself. And it's really important that we model for the people around us how to identify our needs, how to deal with them, how to make sure that they are met. Right? It shows them how to do it for themselves, and it lets them know, hey, I'm going to let you know, right? Don't worry. I'm going to tell you when I need something. You don't have to walk on emotional eggshells around me because I'm going to communicate. And consistency and predictability in relationships is really important, especially for people who feel anxious. It's really important for kids. And so they get that message from you that you're going to be consistently taking care of yourself. You're going to be consistently identifying your needs and communicating about them. And there's just like a kind of a sigh of relief to know that about your partner. So a little different framing around boundaries so that they're a little bit easier to do, so that they're easier for the other person to receive. And if you want some more help with boundaries, I do have a course called Loving Boundaries that walks you through a 4-part process for boundary setting. And because you have to identify that you need a boundary, right? Then you've got to think about, okay, like what does that look like? What makes sense? What action makes sense in the situation, right? What will I decide to do? Then you have to communicate it in a careful way so that it goes well. Because like I said, when people feel judged, this is just one example, when people feel judged, they shut down, they react, they become defensive, and then you've got conflict to deal with as you're trying to put in this boundary. So there are certain things to say and certain things to not say. There are some things you want to avoid in those boundary conversations. And then what do you do afterwards, right? What if someone pushes back? What if someone breaks the boundary? How do you deal with the ways you feel about it? Because putting boundaries in can be very tough. So if you need help, grab that course. It's got videos and a workbook so that you can start building stronger relationships, deeper relationships through really good communication of your needs and how you're going to meet them. All right, I'll see you next time.